Hello my friends and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are going to be making 3 easy and delicious summer pasta recipes. For today's recipes I will be using a lot of ingredients that we went right out into the garden to pick, but you can also use things you get straight from the store. Regardless of where you get your ingredients, these will be delicious, fresh pasta recipes that you can enjoy on repeat all summer long. The very first thing I'm going to do is head outside and grab some of the ingredients we need for these pastas. Like I said, these don't have to be fresh out of your garden, but it does make it extra special when you can go outside and get some of the ingredients that you need right out of your yard. So I'm going to grab all of the cherry tomatoes that I can find and this huge bunch of basil. July in the garden is when everything just explodes with growth and it starts to enter its wild phase of the year. The last thing I'm going to grab is a big bunch of parsley. Now we have all of the things we're going to need for our recipes today. My very first recipe is going to be a roasted cherry tomato pasta. This is probably the easiest of all the pastas today, and that's saying something because all of the pastas are pretty easy, but this one probably takes the cake for being the absolute easiest. And all you have to do is get your cherry tomatoes washed, put them in some kind of a pan to roast them in. I'm going to use this enameled cast iron pan, drizzle some olive oil on top. I'm going to sprinkle them with a little salt and pepper. And then I have this beautiful oregano right here, and I'm going to just chop a little bit of this right on top. The last thing I'm going to do before putting these in the oven is just cut the top off of a garlic and snuggle that down in there. And then we're going to roast this at 400 degrees until the cherry tomatoes look like this. Now I'm going to take my garlic, and because the garlic is going to take a little bit longer than the cherry tomatoes, I'm just going to squish it out of the cloves here and roast it for just a little tiny bit longer with those out of the paper. That way they can get fully cooked. And while that's happening, I am going to cook up this pasta. I like to use the organic pasta from Costco. It's super affordable and it's always delicious. And I thought these were just a fun little shape. All right, so we've got our pan out of the oven again, and I'm just going to stir up the cherry tomatoes and give them a little tiny bit of a chop. That way they're not in huge pieces. And I'm going to grate copious amounts of parmigiano reggiano right on top. This is going to help make the sauce just a little bit creamier because it's not a super saucy pasta. So this cheese is just going to add a lot of flavor and a lot of good texture to this sauce. And of course, you can never have too much Parmesan. Now I'm just going to use my spider and I'm going to scoop these noodles right into the pan. I'm not going to get rid of the pasta water yet because we can always add a little bit of pasta water in if we need to loosen up the sauce a little bit. Give this a nice stir. And then of course we're going to add more cheese because obviously. And then I just rolled up a little bit of the fresh basil from out of the garden, and I'm snipping it right on top here. You could also use a knife and just chop it on a chopping board, or you can go really low tech and tear it, which is absolutely just fine as well. And this is just going to add an extra level of freshness and flavor. Look at that beautiful pasta. All right, so I hear the kids' approval in the background, so now we have to try it. You want to go first?
It's really good, but it has a really nice freshness to it. With the fresh tomatoes, a little bit of basil in there.
I know what it needs. It needs a little bit of olive oil drizzled on top, and that'll make it perfect. Maybe even a sprinkle of sea salt would be good too, if you had like flaky sea salt. The tomatoes, the cherry tomatoes have almost like a sun-dried tomato taste to them, even though they were just oven roasted. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what it needed. It's a nice, fresh summer lunch or dinner. You know what else would be really good in here is a can of cannellini beans. That would take it to the next level and give it a little bit of protein. And cannellini beans have like a creamy flavor that would just, I think, pair really nicely with this. Also, another variation you can do on this recipe is instead of dumping the pasta right in with the tomatoes, you can take those tomatoes and the garlic and either throw it in a food processor or a blender, or just put it in a bowl and use an immersion blender and put a little tiny bit of heavy cream and blend it to be a nice creamy sauce. You could also do that as like a vodka sauce variation if you like that. All three of which would be very delicious. All right, time to make pasta number 2. For this pasta, we are going to do a fresh garden pesto. And the very first thing you want to do with pesto is toast whatever nut you're using. Traditionally, you would use pine nuts. They are super expensive, and walnuts truly are just as delicious, so that's what I always use. Now I'm going to wash my basil and parsley, and yes, we grow organically, so we're not needing to wash off chemicals or anything like that. But as you can see here, fresh greens from the garden almost always have bugs on. That's just part of the deal. So we want to make sure we get all those buggies off. So we're going to soak our basil and parsley in a vinegar water, and then I'm just going to rinse it off again. Now for this recipe, you can use pretty much any green from the garden. Traditionally, you use basil, and that's what has that traditional pesto flavor. I'm adding in a little bit of parsley. It helps the basil go further, and I just have tons of parsley, and parsley is really good for you. So I'm adding in just a little bit of parsley, but for this recipe, you need 2 cups of whatever greens you're choosing, whether that's all basil or a mixture of basil and some other green. Now I'm going to add some lemon juice. You can do anywhere from a half a lemon up to a whole lemon. I always like to start with a half and then see where that gets us flavor-wise. A little bit of cracked black pepper, some salt, and here are toasted walnuts. Now I'm going to add in some really good quality extra virgin olive oil. put the lid on this and we're going to take it over to the food processor and start blending it up. Now, I almost forgot, we also need a clove of garlic, but that's okay. We're going to add that in and it will be just fine. The last thing we're going to add, and I always add this at the end because I don't want it to get too pulverized, is some parmigiano reggiano. And my cameraman also has to take a little bite because we're all cheese fanatics in this house, and you can't cut some Parmesan without tasting it. I'm just going to crumble this into my food processor. And now we're going to give it a taste test. Even when you're following a recipe, you should always taste everything just so that you can judge for yourself what it still needs. And this needed a little bit more lemon, and I added some lemon zest, which is also part of the recipe, but I always wait for the end for that. We're going to blend it up again, and this time it was good. Now, there's another thing about pesto. I really like pesto the best the next day. I think the flavors just meld and marry together and are so much better. That might be controversial. Maybe you like your pesto the first day better when it's super fresh and bright, but that's how I like it. Today we're doing all these pastas in one day, so this is going to get used today. I will always pour my pesto into a jar and then top it off with a little bit of extra olive oil so that it keeps it nice and fresh. And that's how I store it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to use it. Now for today, because this is easy pasta day, and we're making all three of these pastas in one day. Yes, I know we're taking one for the team and eating 3 pasta dishes in one day. And yes, they are all delicious. But because of that, I'm going to use all store-bought pasta today. You could definitely make your own gnocchi, but this is just from the store. And to make gnocchi, we just pour it into the boiling water, and when they start to float, I scoop them out and then put them over into the pan with a little bit of olive oil, and I just like to toast them a little bit extra after they come out of the boiling water. That's an extra step that you don't have to do. I just like to do that. All right, and then we're going to take it off the heat, pour our pesto over, because I don't want to cook the pesto. And then obviously we're going to top it with more cheese because that's just delicious. This is my oldest daughter's absolute favorite meal. I try to make enough pesto that I have 1 container of pesto for every week of the year. That way I can freeze it and we'll have enough pesto to last us through until next garden season because that's how much we love it.
Good as always.
Pesto is like the taste of summer.
When you crisp up the little gnocchis like that, it just adds a nice little texture to it.
My favorite thing to do with gnocchi and pesto is to get a huge bowl and make a giant salad and eat gnocchi with the salad. It's so good. I don't know what it is about the combination, especially if you do like a balsamic vinaigrette on top of the salad. It's just extra yummy. All right, on to pasta number 3. This is our very last pasta, and we're going to go for a completely different flavor profile. We are going to do an Asian peanut noodle salad. For this, we're just going to take whatever vegetables we happen to have. I have mushrooms and carrots and green onions, and I have red cabbage, and I have red peppers. But pretty much any delicious, crunchy vegetable will work. The sky is the limit. You could do whatever vegetables you like. This purple cabbage is absolutely beautiful, and cabbage just gives it an extra yummy crunch. You could also do sprouts on top when you're done. You could do edamame. There are a lot of different options. I'm going to add all of my veggies into a cold dish. We are not going to be cooking these vegetables. Now I'm going to make our peanut sauce. I don't actually use a recipe for making this. If you Google like an Asian or Thai peanut sauce, you can find all kinds of recipes and they all basically have the same ingredients in. But again, I like to taste it and see what tastes right. I always start with a little bit of garlic and then a lot of peanut butter, maybe like a quarter of a cup, a third of a cup of peanut butter, depends how much sauce you want to make. I'm gonna put in some liquid aminos. You could do soy sauce. I have some toasted sesame oil and some maple syrup. You could also do honey if you don't want to do maple syrup. Then I'm gonna add in some ginger. I have powdered ginger. Fresh ginger would be even better. I don't happen to have that right now, so I'm just gonna do the powdered stuff. And then I'm putting in some bottled lime juice and some sriracha. Again, fresh lime juice would be better, but I totally forgot to pick up a lime when I was at the grocery store, so we're just gonna make do with what we've got. Then water it down with a little bit of extra water until you get to the right consistency. And mix it up again. Taste it, make sure it tastes right. For this sauce, I thought it needed a little bit more acid, so a little bit more lime juice and a little touch more of sweetness. So I'm gonna add in some more maple syrup as well. And then it's perfect. Now I have brown rice noodles. These came from Costco, I believe, and I just prepared them as per the package instructions. They're brown ramen noodles. So I'm pouring the peanut sauce right over the noodles, and we're gonna toss this to make sure everything gets coated in that delicious peanut sauce. I probably could have made even more peanut sauce, but I made a little bit more noodles than I should have, to be honest. And then we're gonna top it with some fresh herbs. You can use parsley, cilantro, chives. They'd all be delicious. And a little sprinkle of sesame seeds. And this is absolutely gorgeous. This is probably the most gorgeous pasta we've made today. And this is my son's absolute favorite thing to eat is peanut sauce. He will beg for me to make this sauce just so he can dip raw vegetables in it. He loves it. And this is such a good, fresh lunch or dinner option. When it's hot outside and you don't really want to heat your house up by cooking too much, all you have to do is boil the noodles and that's it. Everything else is raw and fresh and so delicious.
So this isn't really my thing. I'm not really into the raw vegetables and stuff. I like my vegetables cooked. But I'm gonna give it a try for science.
And because you love me.
And because I love you. It does have good flavor. The raw vegetables do add, a freshness to it, full flavored. Still not totally my thing, but it's actually not too bad.
It's actually delicious. It could use more peanut sauce for the amount of noodles I put in. I did a little bit too many noodles. But other than that, the flavors are spot on. The only thing that would have made it better is if I hadn't have forgotten that lime at the grocery store, but next time. All right, I have a little boy over here who peanut sauce is his absolute favorite thing, so he is waiting patiently to have some of this. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, be sure you like this video and subscribe below. That way you won't miss any of the recipes that we'll be making together in the future. And go down to the comments below and let us know what your favorite summer pastas are. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.